Yo, what is up guys, Daleboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So Billam Smith defeats Richard Riakporhe to retain his WBO Cruiserweight title of the world. This was a easy fight to score in my opinion, 10 rounds to 2 in favour of Billam Smith. The scorecards in this fight were way too close. He won by unanimous decision, but the scorecards were way too fucking close. But you know, that's part and parcel of boxing. Riakporhe came into this fight as the A-side, despite being the challenger. The fight was in his hometown, and I felt the referee let Richard Riakporhe get away with far too much, you know, holding, using the head, etc. Riakporhe was dirty in this fight, and for me, should have had more points deducted. He got a point deducted in round 12 for, I believe, leading with a head, but he should have had points taken a lot earlier, to be honest with you. They did their best to make Riakporhe win this fight, but Billam Smith was just too busy, too strong, and he was not to be denied. First round, I felt Riakporhe had the right idea. Billam Smith was taking the initiative and trying to apply a bit of pressure. Riakporhe was trying to hold range and fire the jab. And in round 1, he actually did a pretty good job of landing the jab, splitting the guard of Billam Smith, landing some eye-catching jabs. Billam Smith landed some flurries, but I actually felt Riakporhe won round 1. And it's interesting because before the fight, I felt that in this bout, Riakporhe had to be all the way outside to land his straight punches, in particular the straight right hand, which is his best shot, and Billam Smith had to be all the way inside. And I felt in round 1, Riakporhe was kind of doing what he needed to do. However, after round 1, Riakporhe was not jabbing as much. He was giving away ground to Billam Smith, and he initiated so many clinches. However, the clinching of Riakporhe, it was making the fight disjointed, and it was disrupting Billam Smith, but Billam Smith at times was still able to get a free hand in the clinch and work. So when Riakporhe would go in for the clinch, he was getting outworked. He was getting touched up by Billam Smith. You know, the clinch was a weird strategy for Richard Riakporhe because although like I said, he was messing Billam Smith around, but he wasn't totally neutralizing him. You know, Billam Smith was the only guy throwing punches in the clinch. Riakporhe, I felt, was waiting far too long. It was like he was trying to land one perfect shot, more so than keep up with Billam Smith, who was the far more active fighter. Billam Smith, after the first round, I felt showed pretty good defense by Billam Smith standards. His guard was a bit tighter, and actually his head movement was a lot better than I was expecting. And he was feinting as well, which was very effective in making Riakporhe reset. So Billam Smith would feint, fire the jab, and turn Riakporhe at times. He would spin Riakporhe around and make Riakporhe reset. Good feints by Billam Smith, good ambush tactics. I felt he did a good job working the body. Riakporhe primarily, his main form of defense was trying to clinch and a high guard. In the clinch, Billam Smith was outworking Riakporhe, and Billam Smith did a good job of working around the guard of Riakporhe, particularly to the body. Riakporhe would land a good jab here and there, an occasional clubbing shot, but nothing to really sustain any success. And, you know, after round 1, I gave Billam Smith every single round up until the 9th. Riakporhe came out in the 9th with a bit of impetus and a bit of energy, let his hands go a bit more, landed a good overhand right on Billam Smith, knocked the gum shield out. Wasn't hurt, but it was a very picturesque shot. Gum shield goes back in, Riakporhe tries to get back on top, pushes Billam Smith back to the ropes, lands a good left hook, lands some clubbing shots, and, you know, for a moment I felt Billam Smith was hurt, but I don't think he was, but they were good shots by Riakporhe, but, you know, Billam Smith took them well, and he soldiered on. You know, I felt round 9 would maybe be a turning point for Riakporhe in the sense of, you know, he would have some success, but wasn't really the case after round 9. You know, after round 9, Riakporhe's output dropped once again, just waiting and pouring with the jab, looking for one perfect right hand. That shot never came, and Billam Smith was just outworking him. And even like as this fight played out, it's interesting because Billam Smith was the guy who was more active with his jab. You know, he was scoring with that shot. Riakporhe totally abandoned it after round 1 for whatever reason. And yeah, last 3 rounds, Billam Smith just outworked Riakporhe, and round 12 was a damning indictment on Riakporhe's performance because anybody with a brain would have realised he needed a knockout, and I'm including him in that, but he never went for it. In fact, it was Billam Smith who was initiating the attacks. You know, he was trying to engage with Riakporhe and fire punches, but Riakporhe just didn't answer back. You know, he wasn't throwing much, he was holding, he was mauling. Round 12, he got a point deduction for leading with the head. And yeah, dominant performance by Billam Smith. Don't let the scorecards fool you. I mean, for me, there was 2 rounds where you could give Riakporhe, round 1 and round 9. Aside from that, I wouldn't give him a round personally. A very easy fight to score. Very clear victory for Billam Smith. Very disappointing performance by Richard Riakporhe. And yeah, Billam Smith moves on now. Hopefully we see him in a unification fight. You know, he's talking about Gilberto Ramirez. That's a good fight. And also Jai Opataya. So yeah, those are the sort of fights we want to see him in. But anyway, share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Delboy. Peace.